Okay, we are the 7th of August 2022, and I've known for the past few days, or maybe for the past week or couple of weeks, what I had to do. That I have to let go of the writings of Hegel, and to share all the documents that I had been working on, and all my own productions, in a way, all the fruits of my work. Although it's not finished, but I've understood that I tried to when I understood that sharing my truth, as I did in 2019 and then at the beginning of 2022, didn't work. I thought, okay, now I have to produce something. I thought it would be a systematic and rigorous commentary of Hegel, but I discovered a couple of weeks ago that actually I had to be me, because all my videos have been a failure in terms of quantitative extension, number of views, except the one in which I said, from now on I will just be me. But yeah, and I also understood maybe a couple of weeks ago, I had just finished ordering my library, because I need, being me, whatever I am, implies trying to order everything around me. And I had just finished ordering my library, and I understood that this would be the moment when I would no longer have to order my library, and I would no longer have to buy books, because I suffer from various problems, one of which being my addiction to buying books, as you will see. And I understood when I just finished ordering and structuring my library that I would no longer buy books. I would maybe offer books, that's what I do, and eventually give up on all my books. And I had accumulated so much knowledge in my mind that I still need, maybe I will still use the works of Hegel in a few videos or my own notes, but eventually, as long as I am in a position to talk, I have enough knowledge in my mind to simply express what I think is the truth with my own words of my limited self. So that's unexpected, but I expected the unexpected. So yeah, I will just try to be me. So here's I've been talking for 3 minutes now. Here's simply the structure of my library that I've put a lot of time and effort to try to structure precisely. So here's the table of contents, in a way. So it is structured according to the logic and the process of the encyclopedia. So there are introductory books on philosophy, comments on Hegel, comments on philosophers, books. So here would be the first part of the process of God, basically. So these are my books on logic and mathematics. Then my books on the natural sciences. So here the Abteilungen in blue and green are taken directly from the structure of the encyclopedia, which is the structure of being unfolding itself. So when there are paragraphs, like here, it's I copied basically the structure of my library onto the structure of the encyclopedia. When there are not, like physics, mathematics, logic, etc., it is just the modern categories. But I try to order my library according to the structure of being unfolding itself, basically. So yeah, I just showed, so I have introductory books, mostly about philosophy, books about logic, which includes mathematics, books about the philosophy of nature, and most of my books, of course, these are books about the Philosophie des Geistes, so about what is called der subjektiver Geist. I have books about sociobiology, modern sociobiology, pre-World War II anthropology, die Phänomenologie des Geistes, das Bewusstsein, books about psychology. I have books, you can see the categories. I will not list everything. You can see the categories. Here I've classified the JQ education and books about females, women and sex as in a transition between subjektiver Geist and objektiver Geist, because these are determinations and topics which could be and eventually can be included in both sections, basically. So yeah, so here my books about psychology are ordered according to these subsections or subdivisions. Then books about law, morality, Sittlichkeit. So books mostly about economics. So I have books about every topics here: leftist, communist economics, but also free market economics. Finance. Here the division, as you can see, the division of the encyclopedia derived from the writings of Hegel is die Sittlichkeit. So these are the same series of paragraphs, but here on the right, economics and finance are the categories that I use, because these are the categories that are used in the 21st century to order and understand the economic and social reality. But they do not appear as such in the works of Hegel, but precisely the whole purpose of my channel has been to say that Hegel had to be made up to date. Yeah. So I have books about the euro. I will show the titles of the books. Here's just the structure. So the video will be long, but actually people will be able to understand what is on my mind, in a way. I do not understand, and I haven't read all these books, but it's just that I understand the structure of reality, I think, at least in its broad aspect. I have books about sociology, politics. I have political libertarianism, the left, ecology. I will not comment just the main distinctions about ecology, the left. Books about technology, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, geopolitics, the contemporary Western life, about these countries in the West. Books about white identity, Aryan identity. I have books about history, antiquity, the Middle Ages, the modern era, the 20th century, French history, and other civilizations as well. I have a collection of 30 books about the history of mostly Western civilization, but also the Middle East, Russia, China, the Islamic civilization. Book about historiography, which is the way history is written, and then books about absolute Geist, which is art, religion, and philosophy. Here, the division of the encyclopedia. I have books about the plastic arts, sculpture, painting, etc., etc. Books about music, literature. Here are all the various particular Bestimmtheiten of the universal form of art, which is literature. Books about poetry, personal books, spiritual quest, astrology, religion, spirituality, New Age, cosmic consciousness, Hermeticism, esotericism, nihilism. Here are books about the religions of the world. I have books about Australian religion, African religion, the pre-Columbian religions of Southern, Central, and Northern America, about the native traditions and spiritualities, and also the religions of books, Hinduism of East Asia, of the Middle East, of Europe, paganism, the modern pagan revival, German mysticism, and finally Christian theology and philosophy, which is back to the start. So this is the formal structure. Now I will show the books. I will not comment all the books or the titles of the book, but just to show. So yeah. Okay, so there are 1,376 books. It was finished, the ordering and structuring, on the 25th of July, but I have added I think 9 books since, so, but yeah, I haven't changed the date. So in blue, these are books which are written in English. It doesn't mean that they are written by native English-speaking persons, Americans, Englishmen, Scots, or whatever, but they are written in English. And when they are in green, they are written in German. But I have also books written by Englishmen or American, which are in French. So the books written in, where the title is written in black, they are in French. And I have also books written by French authors in English. So it's quite complex, but actually it's not very complex. It's just if you are a native English-speaking person, where there is blue, this is a language that you should understand, and in green, this is German. So these are introductory books. Here is one of the books that I've come to the most. It's very useful. I've made videos about this. Now, here are my books about philosophy. So the books which are in these part, these are those that I possess, and those who are on the left side in this column, I don't know if you call this a column, these are the major philosophers whose books I do not possess, although I have a book about Lao Tzu, but it's not in philosophy. I've put this in spirituality. And here are the colors. Clear blue, light blue is ancient Greeks, darker blue is Latin. In red, these are Italian philosophers, yellow, French philosopher, dark green are Anglo-Saxon philosophers. It includes English, Scots, Irish, and eventually Americans. In green, clear green or light green, these are Germans. And pink, these are Jewish philosophers or thinkers. So I have Plato, Aristotle, you can pause, Plato, Aristotle, Epicurus, the Stoics, Lucrece. I don't know how you call this in English, because the name are slightly different in English, because these are derived from Latin or Greek. Here also it's ordered chronologically. I just made so it begins in the 6th century BCE, and in a chronological order, more or less. We have Plato in the 5th century BCE, then Aristotle, etc., etc. You can see the date on the left side. Yeah. So here the first, according to the dictionary that I read, the first Anglo-Saxon philosopher is apparently Jean or John Scott Erigen. Here we have Arabic Muslim philosophers, Jewish philosophers also. No, I think no, Arabic or Islamic or Muslim basically. So here is the philosophy of the Middle Ages. So we are in the year 1000. It's the Middle Ages. So I have books by Aquinas. So here are Anglo-Saxon philosophers. The first German philosophers, in a way. He was Belgian, but I included him here. So Cusa and Meister Eckhart. These are German philosophers. Italian philosophers around the turning moment, the end of the Middle Ages, the beginning of the Renaissance. But I do not possess... here, these books, I do not possess them, and although I have books by Meister Eckhart, like Lao Tzu, but they are not classified in my the part about philosophy, but in spirituality. So I have books by Meister Eckhart, and by Cusa also. Okay, here's the end of the Renaissance and the beginning of the new era, the modern era, in the 17th century, which is officially the birth of modernity because of the development of sciences. So, yeah. Here are very influential. So, Anglo-Saxon philosophy mostly is Bacon, Locke, Hume, and at the same time we have the development of German philosophy, Jakob Böhm, Leibniz, and later we have the Germans of the 18th century. Immanuel Kant, here he comes. Here, for instance, Kant lived longer than Voltaire, but here's the date of birth and here's the date of publication, so it's not very rigorous. But precisely, I understood a couple of weeks ago that I wouldn't have the opportunity to make a very rigorous, as rigorous as I would like, or as I would have liked it to be, because I have to share my knowledge. Basically, I have to go to the point, and trying to achieve formal and philosophical perfection is not possible given the circumstances. So I have just to let go and to accept to go to improvise a little bit. But here's the fruits of the work that I've been doing over the past few months, namely to try to make the understanding of God and the communication of the process of God intelligible. So here, at the end of the 18th century, we have in the chronological timeline, Herder, Fichte, Schelling, and then of course here comes Hegel, or rather the writings of Hegel. And as you can see, so here for instance Schelling, I have books in English, in German, in French. Here are Hegel, here is Hegel. I have of course a lot of books by Hegel. I had to buy these books in English, Lectures on the Philosophy of Religion, and here I have many books in German. So here is the turning point of the 18th to the 19th century. Stuart Mill, another famous English philosopher. I have the works of Karl Marx, partly a lot of works by Karl Marx. Frege, again, Anglo-Saxon philosophers, Spencer, Whitehead, Russell. And here I just show you the classification again. So here, these philosophers of the 20th century, I do not have many of them, so I'm not familiar. I mean, I have books by Carl Jung, but then again, it's not classified in philosophy, it's classified in psychology. I know Freud, of course. Yeah. Heidegger, Wittgenstein, etc., etc. Sometimes I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Rudolf Carnap is German, but that's what I found. So yeah, yeah. Also, these are not really strictly speaking philosophers, but they wrote books about philosophy. Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin, Mao. So they were included in my dictionary, and it can be partly justified in the sense that they wrote theoretical books. From the most serious theoretically to more dubious, but I possess books by Lenin, but I don't anymore. Sartre, Coiré, here's the turning point of the 1930s and 40s. Here are some of the cultural Marxists, Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse. I had their books, but as I said in the previous video about my library, at some moment in my development, I got rid of some books, but yeah. Here also some partly, how do you call it, postmodernist philosophers. Dennett, Zizek. I have lots of books by Zizek, of course. And here some modern French philosophers. Yeah, footnotes to Plato, the channel, which is available on YouTube. So yeah. Now I will go a little bit faster. So here, the comments on Hegel, I pause. If you are interested, you can pause. Okay. This book has been a tremendous influence upon my intellectual and spiritual development. Yeah. Comments on philosophers. So here it's not really structured. These are various books. Commentaries of various philosophers. The books about atheism. Okay, so now we'll enter the first part. Die Wissenschaft der Logik. So it's not the Wissenschaft der Logik, but if I use the categories of the encyclopedia to classify my library. So I have books about logic, 5 books about logic, 18 books about mathematics, the Principia of Bertrand Russell and Whitehead, the Elements by Euclid, yeah. Books about physics. Most of them are in French because I can read English, but when the terminology is specific, it's easier to read in your native language, so to speak. But I have books by Feynman here in French, by Hawking, by Lawrence Krauss, Newton, yeah. So the reason why I do not speak about these topics in my video is because they are all contained in pure logic, so to speak. But yeah. But now I have understood that I have to talk about more concrete topics, because otherwise people are simply not interested. They are not interested in pure logic. So, I mean, not for now, but eventually maybe. Books about chemistry, and the books where there is written the book, these are university, college level compendium, as you call this. I think this is the concentrated of all the knowledge that university students should have. So these are really big books, very heavy, voluminous books. The volume is very important. So yeah, it contains a whole lot of knowledge of high level, so to speak. Books about geology, books about biology, Darwin, Dawkins. Here again we have a book, college. It's not a manual, it's a compendium, I think it's called. It encompasses and summarizes all the knowledge in a very structured fashion yeah. Books about botany. When there are little names here, it's because I found these books or these authors thanks to these people, basically. Books about zoology, biology, anatomy and physiology. And now the part about the Philosophie des Geistes, books about modern sociobiology. And here it's very important because people will maybe notice if they watch this video that most of my books, if not all, in the category modern sociobiology are in English, because they are not available in any other language. So the Anglo-Saxon world, mostly American, because of the freedom that academics enjoy, thanks to the American Constitution, they are able to investigate and to publish books, which is not possible either for lack of culture or lack of interest or lack of academic freedom in some other countries. So one of the reasons why I fail maybe to understand people is because I live in the mind of a German with the knowledge of an American, basically, or an Anglo-Saxon. So, yeah. But these books, if they are all in English, it's simply because they are not available in other languages, at least not in some parts of Europe. So, yeah. These are books about sociobiology. Pre-World War II anthropology. So this was the sociobiology before 1945, basically. Then psychology. I have books by Mr. Peterson, books about emotions and feelings. So that's modern neurobiology in a way. Clinical psychology and psychiatry. I've understood a lot about Hegel by understanding some clinical psychiatric problems, basically. Books about psychoanalysis, depth psychology, humor, yeah, consciousness, thought and language, grammar. In the encyclopedia, language and grammar are classified in a subsection of psychology. And then books about intelligence and IQ. And here again, people will notice that in order to study these topics, one has to read English, because these works are only available in English. It doesn't mean that they are all English. He's a German, he was a Finn, he's an Englishman, and I think Jensen was an American. But it's only made available at first in Anglo-Saxon and mostly American society. Books about the JQ. There are Jewish authors, anti-Semitic authors as well. Here's a Jewish author. Here's a Russian author. So yeah. Books about education, the educational system. So I have the American perspective and the French perspective. Books about women, females and sex. And here again, most of the books are in English because these are topics which deal with sociobiology, and there is a freedom of investigation and research in America that does not exist in some other countries. For now, at least. Books about Nikto, traditional womanhood. These were recommended indirectly to me by Stella. And the metaphysics of sex and gender. So the subcategories like the sociobiological view, the view of feminism and female sexuality, the view of Niktos, the view of traditional womanhood, and the metaphysical view. So I try to adopt all the points of view. I have one book about law, morality. Well, morality, it's not by studying in books. You have to apply morality. Some people might say someday, oh, if you are morally bankrupt on certain aspects, maybe it's because you should have bought books about morality. I can anticipate that. Okay, book about economics. I have current economic analysis, economic history and theory. I have leftist, communist economics. So I have the socialist and the socialist and communist perspective. I have the libertarian capitalist perspective, free market economics, finance, analysis of economic crisis and the theory of money, books about the euro currency, books about the Fed or banking in general, books about debt, and general books about banking, finance, and money. Okay, then books about sociology. Here, most of them are in French, of course, because it's more difficult to study another society than the one in which one lives, although it's part of the process. But I have The Bell Curve, which is a very important book. Then politics. Here is what one could call political theory. So there are various visions, and here political libertarianism. So there were free market capitalism or economic libertarianism, and here it's political libertarianism. But although the two eventually must coincide to a certain extent, but here it's more the political aspect. So it could have been classified in law, basically. I have books, most of them come from the authors surrounding the Mises Institute. And here in France, it's so political libertarianism in the US and in France. Although in France we do not call this libertarianism, we call this liberalism. So that's why liberalism, in America it's a leftist ideology, in France it's almost a far-right ideology. The left, precisely. The mainstream left in France, the conservative left, here it's in the UK, the anti-racist left, communists, the fanatical left or the nihilistic left. There's also the nihilistic right. They have nihilism on both sides. The revolutionary left, the anarchist left, books about ecology, how to have a healthy diet, the ecological crisis, anti-moderns, primitivists, ecologists, preppers, which are kind of ecologists in a way, permaculture, off-grid living. I do not possess these books anymore because I can no longer be a farmer, basically. Then books about technology, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, books about geopolitics, and now the contemporary Western life. It's a mixture of all the previous determinations, basically economics, sociology, demographics, anthropology, etc. So it cannot be classified. These are complete works in a way. So, which mix various determinations of the philosophie des Geistes. So the situation in Germany, South Africa, Sweden, the United Kingdom, Canada, the US, France, and Europe or the West at large. Yeah, I have books about white identity, which most of them are in English. Books about Aryan identity. These two authors, they are leftist scholars. So these are not books by right-wingers. We have leftist scholars here. Here we have right-wingers, but it's a mixture of ideology and study. Here we have history classified chronologically. So we have books about prehistory, antiquity. These are native authors of antiquity, so to speak. I mean, the direct actors, one might say. And here are studies. So here these are supposedly agents who participated in these events, in the official storyline. And here are scholars who studied these events. I mean, Montesquieu was not a scholar, but it was a scholarly work. The New History of Antiquity, the Middle Ages, the 15th to 19th century, 20th century, the history of France, other civilizations. I have the history of Africa, history of the Indians in Northern America, the pre-Columbian civilization. I have other books about the history of the Middle East in a later collection. Here, the collection that we see here. I have books about the history of Asia, well, Australia and the rest of the world, no. Historiography, the way history is written. And finally, the third section of the division of the philosophy of Geist. I have books about art, music, pop culture, Rammstein, Tokyo Hotel, Eminem, Lady Gaga. Books about literature. I have literary analysis, French literature. So here I have a book written by a Swiss author of French language in French, but actually I possess the book in English. That's why it's in blue. American literature. So here I have a book by Steinbeck in French, but it's nonetheless American literature. English literature. Irish literature. Russian literature. Ancient Greek literature. German. One book by a Senegalese author. And Sumeria epic poetry. Here is poetry. So French. Here it's not a poet, it's a book about poetry. William Blake, an Italian poet, Dante of course, and French poets. And books about religion or spirituality rather. So here are personal books, books about the homosexuals and their search for God, about astrology, religion and spirituality, the New Age, cosmic consciousness, Hermeticism, esotericism, nihilism, and then the various religions of the world. So I have books about the religion of the native Australian Aborigines, the religion of the native Africans of Sub-Sahara, Amazonian shamanism, the religions of the pre-Columbian civilizations, the religions or the spiritualities of the Amerindians or the native people of what would become the American continent, the legends and tales of the Inuits. In East Asia, shamanism in Siberia, the classics of Hinduism or the Indian of India, religion, books about Buddhism, Chinese spirituality. So here is Lao Tzu, books about Shinto and the doctrine of Bushido in Japan. Then the Middle East, I have books about Persian religion, the Quran, Sufism, and a book by Jalaluddin Rumi, which was a Muslim mystic. Books about the Kabbalah, European mythology and paganism, so the Edda, books about, it's a kind of a folklore paganism, but it contains some interesting truths as well. And here the modern pagan revival, Marie Cachet, Stefan Cvetkovic, Caroline Emmerich, Forgotten Roots, that's the World Tree, Forgotten Roots, Oleg, and the Thulan Perspective. German mysticism, so here's Meister Eckhart and Nicolas Couez, books about Bader, and books about Christianity. Yeah, I put the exegesis in Christianity because it's partly spiritual. Book about Karl Barth, Protestant theology. So here I have books about from Martin Luther, Calvin, Karl Barth. Various editions of the Bible in German, English, Hebrew, Greek and Latin, Latin, English and French. And finally philosophy, which is back to the start, because there is no other topic to talk about. That's why I talk about philosophy in my video, because philosophy contains all others. But I've understood recently that the reason why my videos are not successful is simply because it's too abstract in a way. So yeah, and then I have my office in my apartment. These are books that I use to work, but I know I will no longer use them, or very selectively. So here are personal books about the region, the surrounding of the region where I live. So Alsace is where I live in France, and southern Germany is just next to where I live. The books of Hegel that I have used and maybe will still use as long as I make video to work. Here are books that are very useful. The Exegesis by Philip K. Dick, Hegel and the Hermetic Tradition, The Timelines of Everything. Yeah. Here are books that I've bought recently. Novalis, book about Die Sehnsucht, books by Wagner. He's the last book that I bought, and I think I will no longer buy books. I've reached a point where it's okay. These are the books that I thought I might have the possibility to read, but actually I won't. Books by Nietzsche. So that's why I talk about Hegel and Nietzsche, because they are my working material in a way. Hegel, Nietzsche, personal books, Evola, of course, because cultural Hegelianism includes Evola, so I have many books by Evola. Books by Kant also. So I live next to Hegel, Nietzsche, Kant, and Evola. I mean, I live in my library, but they are next to my office, so to speak. Yeah, and then I have other books. These are for dummies. This was when I was in a training program to become an accountant. Books about sciences, other books that I haven't classified, books that I bought when I wanted to start a YouTube channel many years ago. Books about language, French language, English language, German, Latin, Greek, Russian, Chinese, Sanskrit. And finally, I will share all my books in my basement, books that I have no longer with me in my apartment. Books about dermatology, when I had skin problems and I thought that I had to solve these. That was a serious mistake. Books of a high school level, basically. Books about accountancy, mythology and philosophy, wisdom from past days and modern wisdom. Other books, Harry Potter, and yeah. So I will just go back up to philosophy. So yeah, philosophy, the reason why I talk about Hegel is because philosophy is the conceptual a grasping of the totality of being. And I do not say that my library contains the totality of being, but the structure, actually, it does in a way. I try to replicate the structure of my library onto the structure of the unfolding of being, because all there is, whatever is within being, so to speak. And yeah. So I possess books. I have various perspectives and sometimes opposed perspectives on almost every topic. Left-wing, right-wing, Marxist, libertarian, racist or race realist, anti-racist or post-racist or whatever, religious, atheists, all the religions, all the civilizations, and yeah. Yeah, and I show the broad structure again: introduction, philosophy, comments on Hegel, comments on philosophers, logic, nature. The numbers here are not adequate exactly because I received a few books recently, but that's pretty much accurate with a few exceptions. So here's the broad picture again. And I have understood that from now on I still have a few personal documents to share. So I will still publish a few videos later tonight or in the coming days about the personal documents, namely what I have produced. But then I will start talking directly about these topics, because I understood that this is what people are interested in. If I speak about the pure logical categories, as I've realized, people are not interested. But what I have understood through my intellectual development is that all these books, which are a reflection of reality, or maybe reality is a reflection of these books. That would be very Hegelian, but it's a possibility. But what I mean is that books contain ideas. Ideas are expressed through logical categories, and if books reflect reality, reality is logically structured as well. That's why I've spent so much time studying Hegel, because he contains the mind of God contains the structure of reality, so to speak. That's why now I've reached a point where I've understood recently that I will have to as long as I can talk, I will talk about in an intelligible way, in a sense. So I will maybe partly still use a few books by Hegel, but actually I will use only my notes and I will improvise, and yeah, that's what I had to say. So yeah, I will publish this document probably later, and I still have other documents to share, so yeah.